Joining us is a whistleblower. The article is Media Whitewashes Olympic Security Scandal, Revelations about Casket Liners, Plan for Evacuation of London, Blacklisted. We'll just call him Lee, but he's an investigative journalist. He first brought this story to the national media. They didn't want to cover it and said that there's a blackout. They've since, he came out on, did get on news radio in England, with Tony Gosling, who has his own show, Bilderberg.org, who's a great journalist. Once he was able to go on that show, there's now been some whitewashing about, oh, there are some stuff happening. But basically, it's designed to fail. And just like we broke the plan for martial law in Chicago and evacuation, if there was an attack, later it was confirmed in the Chicago Tribune and Washington Post for NATO, that's basically what's happening here. It's a standard program. And he'll just go by Lee. The article, again, is Media Whitewashes Olympic Security Scandal. The original article was, Whistleblower Reveals Plan to Evacuate London During Olympics. And Lee joins us now. I really appreciate you coming on today, Lee. You've got the floor. Tell us here today.
Well, firstly, Alex, it's absolutely my pleasure being here. I first went into G4S because I was concerned about how they were training people, and I'd heard some stories. And of course, you can't just listen to what people say. You have to get in there and find out for yourself. So I did. So I went to a training centre. I signed myself up to be an Olympic security officer. I already had a security industry authority licence from a previous investigation I'd already done. And by the end of the day, after a brief interview, and when I say brief interview, they basically said, what's your name? I told them. They said, here's 3 cups. Can you tell the difference between orange juice, water, and thin air? There was nothing in the 3rd cup. I said, absolutely. That's orange juice, that's water, that's thin air. And they went, right, you're in. And a few weeks later, I was given my first training assignment, where I had to turn back up at the school again. And basically, they started showing me a PowerPoint presentation of what a security guard does for the Olympics. And I was assigned to work in a pedestrian screening area. Well, I am assigned to work in a pedestrian screening area, which is why I'm going by another name, obviously to hide my identity so I don't get kicked out. And so the security training is so inadequate for these people that they're dragging the job centres for everybody. So if you're long-term unemployed in London and you live in an Olympic borough, you have no choice but to go down to the Olympics. So most of these people don't even want to be there. They tried to deal drugs to me while I was in my classroom. Someone came up to me and actually said, do you want to buy some marijuana? It was. He opened the package up, and there it was. And it had that. All
right, let me just stop you for a minute here, Lee. Your phone's a little overdriven, a little muffled. Can you back off of it a little bit?
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely. How's that?
Yeah, back off a little more. Go ahead and start back over with the marijuana. What was happening there?
Oh, well, I was approached in one of my classes and by a student, and he offered to sell me marijuana in the classroom. This is a student training to be an Olympic security officer. Later on, one of the training officers who was actually training us saw him doing it to someone else, and he turned to him and said, here, mate, can you do that outside? Wait till the break. He actually said that. He didn't kick him out. He didn't phone the police. He didn't do anything. He just said, you wait for a bit later so you can do that in a break. I think it's absolutely ridiculous. And it goes on from there, really.
Tell us about yourself as an investigative journalist, why you got this idea, basically how you signed up, and why you're going public with this information. Because obviously, it's all a bunch of security theater, as we've learned with the TSA, where they wantonly are hiring criminals.
Yeah. I mean, as an investigative journalist, I'm a filmmaker and an investigative journalist. I used to work on a program here in the UK called The Cook Report, which was, I suppose, the last great independent investigative journalist program that there was in this country, until we did a story called Castro Questions, which was about 30 politicians taking bribes, and the company was bought out by a big American corporation, Carbon Communications. They came in, they swooped down, they shut us down, and that was the end of that. So we all went freelance. And ever since then, I don't want to be too specific in what I've worked on, because obviously that will give me away as well. I've been a freelance investigative journalist, and I make documentary films and what have you. And I've worked for all the major broadcasters, as well as doing independent stuff for myself. So, the reason that I wanted to do G4S, because I care about the Olympics. This is the biggest event this country is ever going to see, and I don't want it basically ruined by an organisation that, when they got the job to do the security, they received £86 million contract, and within a couple of years they've bumped that up to £284 million. I don't understand where the money's going. So I went, okay, I don't get this. I'm going to go and join the security team, and we'll find out exactly what they're like.
Why do you think they're doing this? I mean, they claim there's such a big terror threat. Why do they want the most flimsy security possible? Tell us about who's involved. I know Watson's article was reporting that it's mainly foreigners who are to be the security people.
Yeah, that's predominantly true. They are. There's a lot of Nigerians, a lot of Asians who are basically the local populace of the areas, the Olympic boroughs. They're very black-heavy and Asian areas of London, and they're getting them to basically work. They hadn't done a day's worth of security in their life. They're having to put them through their Security Industry Authority license. They have to be licensed before you do any kind of security work in the UK. And so the Olympic Authority are paying for everybody to have their FAA licenses. And these people are being rushed through this program. It's not a hard program, but it's a proper test. I did it. I actually found it. You had to revise for it. There's none of that going on. They sit there for a couple of days and they get the license, which is a joke in itself, really. And then they're on to doing security training. And the reason that this is happening is that they want the worst security there, because obviously, as far as I can see, if something happens, a terrorist gets in, they can blame it on the security. And G4S, being the biggest security company in the world, so they claim, will basically blame this local indigenous population who they couldn't train or untrainable or whatever excuse they'll come up with at the time. I'm used to doing false flag operations as part of investigative journalism that I've done previously. And I proved, without a shadow of a doubt, because I talked to British agents and their handlers, between collusion between the IRA and the British government. And in fact, one of the British agents said to me, there are more British soldiers in the IRA than there are Irish people in the IRA.
I've had members, British commandos on, who were killed after they were on the show. I've had people like Steak Knife on. That got forced out by alternative journalists, but was later, for those that don't know, in the London Guardian and the other big papers, that the entire leadership cell was not infiltrated, but was run by British intelligence, and they would do violent things if they couldn't get IRA members to carry out attacks.
That's right, yeah. And, from Jerry Adams, Mike McGuinness, Steak Knife, there's another guy, Kevin Fulton. These people are all British agents, and so I've done this kind of work before. And this agent, Kevin Fulton, had trained with the FBI, had come back over, went to Ireland, and was teaching other IRA members how to make bombs that go off with the camera flash and infrared flash. So I know all about false flag operations. And this, to me, feels like the same thing. They're putting in a level of security that is inadequate. I'm telling you that now. I was at the training facility a couple of weeks ago, and people didn't know how to search a bag. They were standing there, and it was like a little test. I was standing next to one of the trainers, and the guy was going through, trying to search a bag, and he was just basically staring at it, touching it with his hands. And the trainer said, "It's all right, mate. I know what you mean." And I laughed, and I looked at him and said, "I'm glad you did. Can you explain it to me?" What was he doing? And the trainer just said to me, "Move on. Don't ask." And I was like, right. When I've asked questions about how the training's going, what sort of things we'll be doing, all I've been told is, be the robot. Exactly those words I'm quoting. A trainer said to me, be the robot. Because I was worried because we were having to wear our uniforms, our security uniforms, from the Olympic venue back to our homes and then back to, obviously, to work the next day. And I said, well, hold on a minute. This is a security risk. Policemen don't do that. Soldiers don't do that. Why family. I don't want them held hostage while I have to let someone through a gate or not search them properly, to get them into the stadium. That in itself is a security risk. And the guy just says to me, don't worry about it, mate. Just be the robot. This is crazy stuff that's going on down here at the moment. We've also got these troops that are coming into London. And in actual fact, they're helicoptering them in under the cover of night time. If you live in Greenwich or in southeast London near Woolwich Barracks, you will hear Chinook helicopters going backwards and forwards all night long, and that's them bussing in these troops. And a British Army major, who's a doctor there, told me that he's got to look after 100,000 troops as they come through Woolwich Barracks, and then they moved on to other barracks in and around London. And he said he's seeing a lot of Americans, and he's seeing a lot of Germans, and a lot of other nationalities. And I said, what are these UN troops? And he said, yeah, I think so.
So let's be clear, you're an investigative journalist, been part of these TV shows, all of this. Tony Gosling says he can vouch for you. He's a great journalist as well. And you've covered false flag. That's on record. That these events have gone on. And now you're saying you're seeing all the telltale signs of false flag being prepared and more. They're bringing in to station all over London 100,000 troops, I guess using this really as an I-4 NATO/UN invasion cover, because I've noticed they use these drills as pretext for another mission in the future. So I'm not saying that the UN's invading now. The point is, this is just to acclimate everyone and get everybody prepared for it in the future. He told you 100,000 troops. Where are they stationing them? Where are they bivouacking them?
Well, they're coming into, by Chinook, into Woolwich Barracks. They're going through a medical procedure there and an orientation procedure, and then they're getting moved out. And I assume they're coming in batches of 100 or 120, 150. These helicopter flights are going on all the time throughout the night. I mean, it's the fact that they're doing that at night and not in the daytime, which is suspicious anyway. I don't like things done under the cover of darkness, especially when armies and governments are involved. And then they're putting them out to barracks all around London, and they're just sitting there and they're just waiting there. And basically, as someone said to me the other day, they said, well, hold on a minute, what are these 100,000 troops are going to be for? And I was told, as training at G4S, that we were going to be involved in and I'm quoting now, so I'm going to get it absolutely right, a defining moment in the history of London. This is not talking about the Olympics. They were talking about an event after the Olympics,